What's going on, guys? It's NY Prepper here. It is Friday, June 18th, 2021, and I wanted to talk to you guys about bear safety and some recent bear attacks that happened in Colorado. One of them was fatal, and both of these bear attacks happened last month in May. And again, one of them was fatal. So I want to read these bear attacks to you, and I also wanted to share some of my bear safety tips because I know a lot of you guys out there are going to be spending a lot of time in the woods over the summer. And generally speaking, the summer months are a time of the year when people tend to spend more time outdoors, especially in forested areas. So the summer months are typically when people go camping, hiking, fishing, and do all kinds of outdoor activities. You know, if you're a prepper, you're probably going to be doing bushcrafting. If you're a hunter or an outdoorsman, you're probably scouting for the upcoming hunting seasons in the fall. So, whoever you are, there's a high chance that you could run into a bear when you're out in the woods in the summer months. So, you need to make sure that you take appropriate measures to protect yourself. And I also want to discuss for preppers bear safety, okay? Because a lot of preppers, they have this romantic fantasy that they're going to bug out and run into the wilderness and escape from society in the event of a collapse of society or grid down event, SHTF situation, whatever. And you have to understand that although you're going to be getting away from people, which are a major threat to your survival and your safety, even though you get away from people, when you go out into the wilderness, there's other predators out there besides people, including bears. Okay. So if you're a prepper, you need to familiarize yourself with how to protect yourself from bears. And you also need to familiarize yourself with the habits of bears to know that to know whether a bear is in the area or not, to be able to read their signs, to see if there's a bear in the immediate area that you're inhabiting or you're occupying. Okay, let's say, for example, you're bugging out and you set up camp for the night somewhere in a wilderness area or a forested area. You need to be able to scout the area to see if there's any bear activity and to see if there's any bears that are frequenting the area that you're setting up your camp, okay? Because the last thing you want to do is wake up in the middle of the night to a bear chewing on your leg, okay, and mauling you, okay? And, you know, that's a worst case scenario, but it's happened before. And a lot of people out there say that black bears are not dangerous, that only grizzly bears are dangerous, and don't need to worry about black bears. Well, that's total BS. And anybody that says that has never actually really spent much time in the woods. And there's many people that get killed every year by black bears. And actually, black bears are responsible for more deaths of people than grizzly bears are, and more deaths than brown bears. Okay. Um, and so there's a lot of cases of man eating black bears, particularly in Canada. There's almost every year, at least one or two people die in Canada from a man eating black bear. Okay. And it usually happens in very remote areas. But black bears can become man eaters, okay, and they can become predators of humans, okay. So you need to understand that. And here in upstate New York and in the Northeast, we actually had two cases of man eating black bears in the last 20 years. I'm going to go all the way back to 2003, right nearby where I live in the village of Fallsburg, New York, which is in the Catskill Mountains, which you guys have always seen me do my videos there in the Catskills. In 2003, in Fallsburg, New York, a baby was taken out of its stroller by a predatory black bear and dragged into the woods. And although the bear ended up dropping the baby because the mother ran out and tried to scare the bear away. Just the fact that the bear grabbed the baby by the head immediately killed the baby. And it's a really sad story. But this actually happened. You can look it up yourself. Fallsburg, New York, bear attack. Basically, this mother left her baby outside in the backyard in a stroller, and a small black bear ran out from the woods, grabbed the baby by the head, and dragged it back into the woods. And again, although the bear ended up dropping the baby, it was enough to kill the baby, and that's a really sad story. So you need to be aware that anytime you go into the forest, there's always a possibility that you could run into a black bear. Okay. And again, if you're a prepper, and you're going to be bugging out, black bears are everywhere. Okay. Black bears are basically one of the most adaptable creatures in North America. I mean, black bears live all the way south in the Everglades, and they live all the way up near the Arctic Circle, okay, and everywhere in between from the East Coast to the West Coast. Black bears are extremely adaptable. They can eat almost anything. They're extremely tough, and they're extremely powerful and fast, and they have extremely heightened senses when you compare it to a human being. Their sense of smell is incredible, and they're potentially a very dangerous animal, okay? Now, I'm not saying that all bears are dangerous and that you need to worry about every single bear and that we should kill them all. No, I'm not saying that. I personally hunt bears, but I have respect for them. I think that they're extremely, um, you know, an extremely powerful animal, and you have to respect that. You have to have respect for these animals, and you have to be aware that they're out there. Okay. You can't just walk around in the forest like you're in Central Park with, being completely oblivious to your surroundings, not having any tools to defend yourself, not knowing what the signs are, if there's a bear in the area or not. Okay. There's a lot of people that come from the city and they go hiking in, wilderness areas because they want to go camping and they want to get out of the city. And they have no idea what to do if a bear attacks them, or even if there's a bear in the area. They're not people who spend a lot of time in the woods, so they don't even know, how to tell if an area is being inhabited by bears or not. They don't know how to spot food sources for bears and areas where bears would typically inhabit. So you really have to be careful when you're out there in the woods this summer. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys some of my tips later on in this video, but I want to just read some of these attacks to you. And another man-eating attack that happened here in the Northeast most recently. The first attack, like I mentioned, was the baby in Fallsburg, New York, and also not far from New York in northern New Jersey. There was a man-eating incident where a college student was killed by a black bear and consumed, okay? And this happened, I think, in 2014. There was a group of college students. They went for a hike in a forest preserve, and there was somebody who was leaving the trail, and as they were going into the trail, and the person leaving the trail told them at the parking lot that there was this weird bear that was following them, and they felt weird about this bear, so they left. And they tried to warn these college students, but the college students decided to go anyway, and they had no weapons on them, no self-defense tools. And guess what happened? They ended up seeing the bear, and the bear ended up stalking them. Okay, it was following them, and what they ended up doing was they ended up splitting up in different directions to try to confuse the bear, which was a bad idea. Anytime I hear people saying that, I always get so frustrated at the stupidity of something like that. Because the problem is, if you split up in different directions, the bear is going to single one of you guys out, okay? And it's going to typically single out the slowest and the weakest one and go after that person, okay? You're much better off staying together in a group and fighting the bear together rather than splitting up and, going in all different directions. And so what ended up happening was these group of students, they split up, and the bear chased down one of them and stalked him and ended up killing him. And when game wardens showed up, because the other college students survived, they went back to the trailhead and they realized that their friend was not there. And so they called the fish and game department, or they actually called 911 first, and they said that there was a bear that was stalking them, and they ran in different directions, and one of their friends was missing. And so 911 called, fish and game, and they dispatched someone out there, and they found the missing hiker's body, the college student, and the bear was standing over the college student, and they shot the bear. They killed it. They did an autopsy, and the bear ended up having human remains inside. Okay. So black bears are more than capable of killing any human being. Okay. A black bear can get up to 800 pounds in some areas, okay? Especially in the East, where they're not competing for food against other apex predators like wolves and grizzly bears. Black bears are the apex predator in many parts of the United States, pretty much in almost all parts of the United States except Western Montana, Yellowstone, and Alaska. Okay, the black bear is pretty much the apex predator everywhere else. Okay, black bears can easily get up to 500 or 600 pounds, especially the males. The males get up to five or 600 pounds after a few years, and a 500 or 600 pound bear is a serious threat to your safety, especially if it wants to hurt you. Okay, they have a lot of strength, they have a lot of speed, they can climb trees, they can smell you from long distances away. And I've had some close encounters myself with bears. None of them were any kind of aggressive encounters or anything like that. But my dad actually had a scary situation happen to him 2 years ago. He was deer hunting by himself in a wilderness area, and he was sitting against a tree, and he was overwatching an area where he saw a lot of deer activity. And he took a nap, and he woke up and he saw this bear kind of running towards him, and he said it was a huge bear, and he had his gun next to him, so he didn't actually have his gun on his person. And he said the bear closed the distance. Within a matter of seconds, the bear was within 25 yards of him, and he grabbed his gun as quickly as he could and took the safety off. And luckily, the bear didn't actually attack him, but it was interested in him for whatever reason. It must have smelled him, and it ran in his direction, but then it ran off. And my dad was pretty shook up after that situation. And he actually took a shot at the bear, like a warning shot, to scare it off. And the bear did not even run or do anything. It just continued to stand 25 yards away from him. And, I've talked about this story many times on my channel, so I'm not going to bore you guys with it. But basically, black bears are a force to be reckoned with. And I want to just read these attacks to you guys. All right, so I'm going to read to you one attack where a man actually survived. So this happened in Steamboat Springs in Colorado. So according to Colorado Parks and Wildlife officials, at approximately 11 p.m. on Sunday night, this was around Memorial Day, the homeowner noticed that the door to his garage was open. Upon going to his garage to close the door, the unidentified man encountered an adult female bear and two cubs. As the man attempted to slowly back away from the wild animals, the adult bear attacked him, causing serious injuries to the homeowner's head and legs, which you can see in this picture here. And this is the actual homeowner here that was attacked. Though the man suffered severe lacerations, the injuries are not thought to be life-threatening. The victim is in stable condition. Officials were able to find the sow near the home and they euthanized it, which is, sad. But they have to do that because it already attacked a person. And once a bear attacks a person, it's going to lose its fear of people and continue attacking people. So they have to do that. Wildlife officials continue to search for the two cubs. Officials hope to trap the cubs and transport them to a rehabilitation facility instead of euthanizing them. It is believed that the bears were attracted to the man's garage due to birdseed and other attractants he was storing inside. This is an important reminder for others to be highly aware of what wildlife attractants might be present in their own living space. So basically, this guy left his garage door open, and a bear wandered inside with, a mother bear with her two cubs, and must have been attracted to, something inside. He had bird seeds. Bears love bird seeds, especially in the springtime. Typically, here in upstate New York, after winter is over, the bears start to come out around April, and they raid all the bird seeds. Like all my neighbors here, they always complain about their bird seed or the bird feeders getting torn up because of the bears. So be aware of that. Be aware that bears have a very powerful sense of smell, and in the springtime, in particularly, they're very hungry because they didn't eat anything for 6 months, and they're going to immediately hit up any kind of calorie dense foods like bird feeders and bird seed or garbage or dead animals, and they'll even kill pets and things like that. Okay. So you have to be aware of that. Okay, so that was one attack. Now the other attack, which is a little bit more concerning. Now this is, I always see people leaving their garage doors open at night, and I have no idea why people do it. I always see people around my area. I'll drive around and I'll see someone with their garage door open, and there's one of my neighbors in particular. He leaves his garage door open every single night, and I have no idea why. But that is the dumbest thing that you can do, because that's the bears will wander into any area like that because they have very good sense of smell, and they're curious, and it just opens the door to problems. Okay, so keep your garage doors closed. Don't leave any kind of smelly foods in your garage, like dog food or bird feeder or bird seeds. Because the bears will smell that through the door, and they could even break in through the garage door. So that was an interesting situation. And now we have the really sad situation here, which was a fatal attack. A woman was killed by a bear outside of Durango, and this was in May. Officials say 39-year-old Lainey Malavolta was walking her dogs in Trimble, a town 10 miles north of Durango, when she was attacked by a bear. Malavolta was found dead by her boyfriend after he searched for her for more than an hour when her dogs returned home without her. Okay, so this woman went for a walk and she got killed by a bear, and this is right outside of Durango. And her boyfriend found her dogs, basically ran back home, and he was wondering why they came home without her. So he looked for her, and she ended up dying. It says here, Colorado Parks and Wildlife officers responded and found evidence of consumption on her body and an abundance of bear scat and hair. Wildlife crews and trained tracking dogs found a female black bear and two cubs and euthanized them. They were taken to a state wildlife lab in Fort Collins for necropsies. A wildlife pathologist found human remains in the digestive systems of the sow and one of her yearlings. No human remains were found in the second yearling. An autopsy determined the cause of death was perforating injury to the neck. So basically, the bear bit her on the neck, and she probably bled out and died. That's a really bad way to go. I mean, could you imagine a bear mauling you to death? That's not fun. Not a quick death for sure. So we have these two incidents here last month, and I think there's going to be more and more incidents like this as time goes on because the bear populations are continuing to grow around the North American continent because they're protected now. There's regulated hunting, but outside of those regulated hunting seasons, the bears are fully protected. And so in the last few decades, we've seen their populations continue to grow. And black bears are very adaptable. Like I said, they live anywhere between the Everglades and the Arctic. Okay. So they can live pretty much anywhere, the tropics or the Arctic, and anywhere in between. So they're just going to continue to grow. Their population's going to grow. And even if you don't live in an area that your local officials deem a bear population area where there's a lot of bears, doesn't mean that there's no chance of seeing a bear. You know, black bears can travel hundreds of miles easily, okay? And they travel throughout their lives. Black bears travel constantly. They don't stay in one small area. They have to continuously travel because they need a lot of food, and their mass requires them to eat a lot of calories. Okay, so they have to continuously travel to find food. Okay, so when they exhaust one food source, they go to another, and they can travel very long distances. So even if you don't live, let's say, right next to the Smoky Mountains, or right next to Yellowstone, doesn't mean that you're not going to see a black bear. Okay, black bears have wandered into suburban areas that are far, far away from any kind of national park or state park or wilderness areas. Okay, they don't need wilderness areas to survive. They're very adaptable. All right, they're like 500-pound raccoons. So you need to be aware of that. And I want to just share some of my safety tips now. First of all, like I said, be aware that anytime you go into the woods, there's always a chance you could run into a bear. Um, Even if you don't go to a wilderness area per se, black bears can be anywhere. They're very adaptable. So always be aware, and be alert to your surroundings when you're hiking or whatever you're doing. Always check behind you, look around you. Be alert to what's going on. You want to have some situational awareness when you're in the forest, because bears are really quiet and they can walk very quietly because they have pads on their feet. So many times you could walk up on a bear and not even know that it's there, or the bear could be stalking you and you won't even know that it's so close because their feet are padded and they don't make a lot of noise when they walk through the woods. Okay. And that's basically what happened to my dad when he was hunting. This bear came out of nowhere and he didn't even know the bear was there because they're so quiet, and it just popped up, 100 yards away. It popped up out of nowhere and it started running towards him. And I've had situations like that happen. I've gotten within 25 yards of a bear and I didn't even know it was there. And, luckily the bear ran away. But bears are extremely quiet, so you have to be alert. You have to be aware. Avoid going into the woods at dawn and dusk, especially at dusk, because that's when bears are most active. They're actually most active in the evening hours and overnight. So if you're hiking when the sun is going down, you need to be extra careful and extra alert to your surroundings. And especially if you're spending time in the woods at night, if you're doing a camp out or something like that, you need to be aware of your surroundings. Okay. So that's the first thing, is just being alert, knowing what time the bears are active. They're most active in the evening hours and overnight. So be aware of that. Be alert to what bear habitat looks like. Bears typically need to eat a lot of food. Okay. So anywhere that there's an abundance of food, you'll always find a bear. And what I mean by that is, if there's an area that has a lot of berries, like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, any kind of berry patches or fruit trees, in the woods, you're generally going to see bears over there. Also, areas that have a lot of older mast trees, mast producing trees like oaks and beech trees. Okay, oaks drop their acorns, and beech trees have beech nuts. All right, so any kind of mast producing trees are going to be a food source for bears, so they're going to frequent those areas as well. And bears also like to hang out near campgrounds and areas where there's a lot of camping going on, because they know that campgrounds have a lot of food. People leave garbage out, and people throw away their power bars on the ground, and the bears come in at night and eat the scraps. Okay, so they're generally going to be found around campground areas as well. All right, so know how to recognize bear habitat. Another thing too is, right now it's June, and June is the time of the year where bears are mating, and the male bears are extremely aggressive this time of the year, because they're marking their territory and they're trying to court the females. And so black bears can be extremely aggressive, especially the male bears this time of year. So you need to be aware of what uh, bear markings look like. So if you're hiking in the woods and you see scratch marks on a tree, and if the scratch marks are only located in one particular part of the tree, that means that the bear was marking its territory. And so that's basically similar to a white-tail buck scraping, or not scraping, rubbing a tree with its antlers during the rut. It's the same exact thing. The black bears will stand up on their hind legs and they'll scratch the tree. And the higher up the scratch marks are, means that the bear is bigger, because it has longer paws and it can reach higher. And that's how the bears mark their territory. So when another bear shows up and they see that scratch mark, the bear can size itself up and see if it's bigger than the bear that scratched the tree, and possibly either run away and find new territory or challenge the bear. Okay, so that's what the black bears do in the mating season, the males. And another thing too is, you'll see, if you're hiking, you see a tree that's all clawed up all the way up from the all the way from the bottom to the top. That means that the bear was climbing up and down the tree to get at the nuts at the top of the tree. And they usually do this with beech trees or oaks. And they usually do that around September, October is when they begin to climb the trees to get to the nuts at the top before the nuts fall on the ground. So you'll see like the whole tree scratched from bottom to top, and that means the bear was climbing the tree. But if you see scratch marks that are localized to, let's say, an area that's like 4 to 7 feet off the ground, then that means that's a tree that the bear was trying to mark, okay, for mating purposes. All right. Either way, if you see any kind of trees like this, you need to be on red alert, because that means that there's bear activity in the area. Another thing too is bear scat. Okay, bears generally, if you see a lot of poop in one small area, that means that bears are there, especially if it's fresh poop. Black bears also like to use hiking trails, and I've experienced this myself. I've seen a lot of bear tracks on hiking trails, and the reason why is that, bears are just like people. They would much rather use a hiking trail than walk through dense woods, because it's easier. So if you're on a hiking trail, you have to be aware of that, okay? You have to be aware that there's bears sharing the same trail that you are. And another time of the year that bears can be dangerous is when the female bears are giving birth in January. Okay, the females will actually come out of their dens temporarily to give birth, and they can be extremely aggressive at that time. Obviously, if any kind of female bear with cubs is always a danger, whether it's a black bear, whether it's a grizzly, whether it's, for that matter, any female animal is dangerous if it has its offspring nearby. Okay, so you always need to be aware of that and give any kind of mother bear its space. But another thing to be aware of too is the behavior of the bear. If a bear is kind of like following you and stalking you even after you've given it space, that means that the bear is sizing you up as a possible meal. Okay, it's looking at you as a meal. Okay, it wants to possibly kill you and eat you. Okay, so that's a predatory bear, and when you're dealing with a predatory bear, you have to use force. Okay, you have to kill the bear, scare it away. You have to do whatever it takes to make the bear change its mind so that you're not an easy meal for it. Okay. This is why I carry a handgun anytime I go into the woods. And I always try to carry bear spray as well. But at the very least, I always carry a large survival knife, bear spray, and a handgun. I don't always carry the handgun, but 90% of the time I do carry a handgun. But I always have some kind of a knife on me, because even a knife, it sounds kind of crazy, but if a bear knocks you down and it starts mauling you, even if you have a knife on you, it's better than nothing. You can try to stab the bear once or twice, and it may not kill the bear, but it's enough to get the bear to run away from you and cease the attack. Okay. And because black bears are not as large as grizzlies, you have a better chance at fighting one off with a knife. Although some black bears can get up to like 500-600 pounds, which is hard to fight a 500 or 600 pound animal. But at least carry a knife with you, and definitely carry pepper spray. If you're going to carry pepper spray, be aware that pepper spray has a shelf life. It's not something that's like permanent. It's an organic compound, so it goes bad typically after 2 years. You have to replace it. Another thing you want to do with bear spray is you want to test it out, make sure that it works, and see how far it shoots. And with your knife, if you're going to carry a knife, obviously make sure it's legal in the area that you're carrying, and also make sure that you can access the knife quickly and you can deploy it quickly. Okay. You don't want a knife that's going to be impossible to reach, or is covered up by clothing, or it's difficult to get it out of the sheath. A good Kydex sheath or a basic leather sheath with a single snap is the best way to go for quick access, and you don't want anything blocking it. Same thing if you're going to carry a handgun. Now, I've done a lot of videos on handguns and bear defense with handguns, and I could talk for hours about it, but all I'm going to say about it is that obviously make sure it's legal in the area that you're carrying. Make sure you have the proper permits, because a lot of people that share hiking trails with you are not always going to be friendly to people carrying guns, and they may try to report you to the police. Or a lot of people that hike on a lot of hiking trails are from the city, and they're not used to seeing guns, or many of them have never even seen a gun before. So if they see you hiking on a trail with a gun on you, they may freak out and call the police or something. And then if you don't have the proper permits and stuff like that, it could be a bad day for you. Okay, so make sure you're legal, make sure you have the permits. But once you have that squared away, you want to think about how you're going to carry your gun. And I personally prefer a good Kydex chest holster. And my favorite holster that I always use is the Gunfighters Inc. Kenai chest holster. And I've done a lot of reviews on that one. And you could check out my gear reviews playlist for that. And I'll leave a link up above, and you could check that out. But I love a Kydex chest holster because it's easy to deploy. And the reason why I like a chest holster is because if I'm wearing a backpack, the backpack straps are not going to get in the way of my holster, because the gun is on my chest and it's not on my waist. And if a gun is on your waist and you're wearing a backpack, it may be hard to draw the gun out because the backpack straps could be in the way. So, in a chest holster, you can also put over your clothing. So if it's wintertime and you're wearing a jacket or something, you can put it over your jacket. And the Kydex is really good because all you have to do is just pull the pistol out. There's no snaps. There's no retention system. It's just the Kydex itself, retaining the pistol. So you just have to give it a good strong pull, and it'll come right out of the holster and it's ready to go. And so I personally prefer a Kydex chest holster. Um, when you're talking about, guns for bear defense, you want to think about big bore revolvers. I would recommend 357 Magnum or larger, or 10 millimeter. Okay, those are my recommended loads for black bear. And you want to use hard cast bullets or some type of solid non-expanding bullet, and that's what you want because you need to penetrate through several inches of fat and muscle and thick bones to get to the vitals of the bear. Okay, now bears can have up to 5 or 6 inches of fat on them, especially in the fall time. So, if you have a 9 millimeter, you're not going to be able to penetrate through 6 inches of fat. And then on top of that, you have the hide, which is very thick. And then you also have muscle and very large bones. Okay, a 9 millimeter is just not going to work. You need to have a Magnum pistol, preferably 357 Magnum or larger, or a Glock 10 millimeter or some type of a reliable 10 millimeter semi-auto with solids. You don't want any expanding bullets. You want solids. And I don't recommend full metal jackets because full metal jackets, although they don't have a hollow point or they're not a soft point, the jacket material is very thin and it's not going to have enough density to punch through bones. So you need something that can punch through bones, and the only way to do that is with hard cast lead or solid copper alloys or other types of alloys. Okay, um, so that's what you need for bullets, and you need proper bullet construction. You need to practice, practice with your pistol, practice drawing out the pistol and putting a good round on target at 10 to 20 yards. The thing is with bears is that the first shot is the most important shot. It's not the seventh or eighth or 20th shot. Okay, you have to make sure your first shot is perfect because the bear's not going to necessarily give you a second follow-up shot. Okay, they can close distances very quickly, and if you miss on the first shot, you may not get a second shot. So you have to make sure you practice getting the gun out fast, drawing it out, and getting a bullet right where it needs to be, the first shot. Okay, because you don't know if you're going to get a second shot. So that's very, very important. So, practice with your gear, your bear spray, your pistol. Make sure you have the right ammunition. Be aware of what the bear's habits are. Be aware of what bear sign looks like. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not much else to really discuss here. You just use your common sense, and you'll be fine. And bears typically, if you give a bear space, then you're going to be good to go. You never want to run away from a bear because if you run away, the bear will see that as a prey. They'll see you as prey and they'll chase you. It's a natural instinct for animals to want to chase something that's running. So never run from a bear. You always want to back away slowly. You never want to stare a bear directly in the eyes because they see that as a challenge. And black bears typically, when they see you challenging them, what they're going to do is they're going to pop their jaws. And what they do is they bite they kind of clench their jaws really fast, and it makes like a popping sound because their teeth, when they're closing their mouth, they make like a popping noise. And that's typically a sound that a bear makes when it's warning you that you're getting too close. Another thing that they'll do is they'll swat at the ground, kind of similar to like a bison or a bull. When a bull or a bison is about to charge, they kick the ground. Bears will do the same thing. They'll swat the ground. So when you see that kind of activity, you want to back away. You don't want to run. You want to maintain your composure. You want to face the bear and just back away, okay, as quickly as you can without running. And sometimes bears will do a bluff charge, so they'll run at you, and then at the last minute, they'll change direction because what they're trying to do is they're trying to size you up to see if you're going to run away. And if you stand your ground, they'll typically run away. Okay. And the only time they won't run away is if it's a predatory attack. And if it's a predatory attack, then you're going to know because they're going to be stalking you for a long period of time. And even if you're backing away, it's not going to do anything. They're going to continue to follow you. So at that case, if the bear starts to run to you, then you have to fight back. You have to pull your gun out, your bear spray, your knife. If you don't have any of those things, you want to consider taking your backpack off and using it as a shield, and putting the backpack in front of you and using it as a shield to protect yourself from the claws and the teeth, and maybe grabbing some good sized rocks on the ground and using them as force multipliers, or logs or anything like that. But if you're a prepper, I highly recommend that you familiarize yourself with bear defense. It's a huge topic, and it requires a lot of understanding, because if you're going to bug out, you're going to have to deal with bears, and there's a lot of people out there that don't understand how dangerous the woods can be. A lot of preppers, especially preppers that don't spend time in the woods, they don't understand these things, so I'm trying to help you guys out. I'm not trying to sound like a arrogant person or anything like that. I'm just trying to help people. So I wanted to just talk to you guys about this. That's all I have for now. I know this video is a little bit long-winded, but I feel it's a very important topic. So make sure anytime you go in the woods, you're aware of your surroundings, understand the habits of bears, what areas they like, the signs, if they're active in an area, make sure you have some kind of tools for self-defense, a knife, bear spray, and a handgun. And if you have these tools, make sure that you can access them quickly and practice with them so you're good at using them. And, other than that, enjoy your time in the woods. Don't be paranoid. You don't want to be paranoid and constantly looking around and stuff like that. You want to enjoy your time in the woods, but you also want to have a certain level of awareness as well. So, that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.